Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. It is time you're in the know. Come and join us right here now. And if you do not, then the cow. I don't know. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? Hopefully, everyone's doing well. So, today we are doing our 826th episode of the Wednesday show. We're going to be giving you guys the option today on what we are going to talk about. So, start trying to figure out what you want us to talk about for the next hour, and we might possibly take your idea. Oh, isn't that lovely? We got people who are slowly creeping on here. Hello, people creeping on here. Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Disney as usual. I'll let you guys get on here for a minute here, and then we'll continue. We'll continue our little show. I am fairly certain, though, today I had a fairly busy day without planning on having a fairly busy day. I went over and I got the low score of the day on the summer side of the Winter Summerland mini golf. Then I went over to Blizzard Beach. I rode Summit Plummet 3 times. And then I went over to Hollywood Studios and I rode Star Tours. And I'm fairly certain that probably has never happened before. I don't know how many people can say that they had the low score of the day and then also went on Summit Plummet 3 times and went on Star Tours all on the same day. It was a good day. Good evening. Hello, Christine. How are you doing? Oh, yeah. Let's get this party started. We're going to be starting the... Hello. Okay, we're going to start the 826th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Wait a minute, is it not working for people? I just got a message from someone saying, oh, never mind. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 826th episode of the Wednesday show. Today is June 18th, 2025, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today we're going to be talking all about Disney. You guys are going to be choosing the topic, so make sure you come in, join us. Let me know in the comments if you're there, because you guys are going to be helping us decide the topic tonight. But before we get to any of that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you everyone out there who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we're going to be, but I promise you we'll always be coming to you live from Disney. So make sure you join us every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for a little bit of Disney fun. Also, speaking of doing our broadcast on YouTube, we are continuing to have it so our numbers grow and grow here. So let's take a look at our numbers. Maybe. There he goes. We are starting off today at 8,712 subscribers. If we continue going up as the evening goes on here, we will go into extra innings and talk even more and more about Disney this evening. So send a friend over if you're having a good time. If you're not, send over an enemy so they have to suffer too. And of course, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our wonderful, our super duper, our amazing Patreon pals. I don't know why I do that one often. Thank you, our Patreon pals out there. If you are one of our Patreon pals out in the chat room right now, give us an oh yeah. Thank you, our Patreon pals. They make the world go round, or at least they make this show go round, and also they help with equipment and all that other fun stuff. And so we got some exciting things also. Now, you guys start to think about what you want the topic to be about, but while you guys go through and figure that out, I'm going to tell you 2 other little bits of information that we've been talking about in private over the last few days here. So first off, before we talk about those things, here are your 3 options for tonight's episode. Ooh, we can play a game of Connect the Dots. If you've never played a game of Connect the Dots, you guys throw a bunch of random things about Disney in the comments, and I go through and have to try to connect the dots from one thing to the next, and bring it all around full circle to have it so everything connects to another. It's a fun game if you've never played before. Number 2, we can do a question and answer in our favorite segment called Ask the Expert, where you throw me questions about anything and everything Disney, and I will go through and answer anything and everything you ask. And then finally, our final topic can be a deep dive about a current Walt Disney World attraction. So this can be a running attraction like the People Mover or the Tower of Terror or Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway or anything else that's currently running. So throw your votes in the comments, and while you guys do that, let's talk a little bit about one final piece of information here. We don't help with your sanity, at least I don't. You guys are good. The Patreon pals are good. So we have 2 things that I am currently in the middle of planning. If you guys love them, and I know some of you guys miss them, and I personally love them and miss them too, but we are going to be bringing back our crazy challenges. That's right. We have not just 1, but 2 crazy challenges that are currently being planned. I don't know if we'll be able to go through and pull both of them off, but we're going to attempt to make sure that we can go through and attempt these things in the coming months. So the first one will be filmed possibly on July 1st, and the second one will be filmed possibly at early September. So if you guys are interested in that, again, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Or if you're one of our Patreon pals, again, you guys are helping fund that too. So again, give it our Patreon pals out there an oh yeah, because, well, they should give an oh yeah because they're, anyways. Oh yeah, Patreon pals. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Okay. Let's take a look at the votes here. We got number 1, which was Connect the Dots. We've got another vote for Connect the Dots. We got another vote for Connect the Dots. It looks like we're going to be doing a game of Connect the Dots. So for those of you who are just joining us for the first time ever, if you've never played a game of Connect the Dots with us before, this is how Connect the Dots works. You are going to be throwing random Disney things at me. Okay? So this is going to be things not like it's not like Walt Disney World, because we can connect Walt Disney World to pretty much anything in the Disney universe pretty quickly. You want to get as specific as possible. So you want to have it so it's things like the mother from Carousel of Progress, something more specific, or things like Wreck-It Ralph or Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, the goat from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. We can get into very specific things. We can get into other things, but the way this works is if you put something into the chat room, you are not allowed to put something else in the chat room until someone else has also put something into the chat room. So you cannot go through and say Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto. You can put down Mickey Mouse, and then you have to wait for someone else to put something before you can put down Donald Duck. And then wait for someone else to put something before you get to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And the purpose of the game is to have it so we try to connect everything from one thing to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, and make it so we can see how everything is connected in the great circle, the circle of life. Well, the circle of Disney, as we talk about it. Hey, Maria, how you doing? Those look like the in the tiki room, in the tiki. All right, so we've got our first 2 are in the comments. So we're going to start off with Tom Sawyer Island. We've got connected to Mickey. And then after that, whatever you guys are throwing out to the comments is what we're going to be connecting everything to. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's all begin a little game of Connect the Dots. We're starting off here at Tom Sawyer Island. Now, Tom Sawyer Island, of course, is one of the most magical places on Earth. I absolutely love it. It is going to be closing down in just a few weeks, like 20 days to be exact. 20 days? 19 days? 18 days? I don't even remember days. But in just a few weeks, unfortunately, Tom Sawyer Island is going to be disappearing. And, of course, I think it's important for us to go through and talk a little bit about the history of Tom Sawyer Island to connect it to our next character. Because, as most people believe, Tom Sawyer Island was not an opening day attraction, even though a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Tom Sawyer Island, been around since opening day. The island was there on opening day, but unfortunately, no one could actually go out to the island on opening day. In fact, people could not go out to it for the first several years. For the first several years, Tom Sawyer Island was closed off to the public. It was just an island sitting out there in all of its wonder and all of its glory and all of its everything else. Now, in order for us to talk a little bit about Tom Sawyer Island, I think another thing that's very important for us to also discuss is the fact that it was originated from the Tom Sawyer Island that is found over in Disneyland. And not only that, Disneyland's Tom Sawyer Island had a chief Imagineer in the form of Walt Disney. That's right, the creator of the entire Disney Corporation. The main person who designed the entire island was Walt Disney himself. It's the only attraction that he was the main creator of that thing on. Now, Walt Disney would go through in the history of Disney and create several different popular characters, including people like, Alice from the Alice shorts, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But interestingly enough, even though he is credited with the creation of Mickey Mouse, it is also a side credit to Ub Iwerks. So, Ub Iwerks and Walt personally made Mickey Mouse. Now, Mickey Mouse has been around in our hearts since 1928. He's closing in on that 100-year anniversary, but let's talk a little bit about other things that are not 100 years old, because that's how we have to get to our next thing. So Mickey Mouse has gone through so many different things throughout the years, and we've had things like pictures and videos and video games and attractions. Everything kind of focuses around Mickey Mouse and the entire Disney Corporation, including Hidden Mickeys. Now, Hidden Mickeys was a phenomenon that started back in 1982. There's times where people go through and point out Hidden Mickeys that are found in older films like Pinocchio. They'll be like, oh, look at the bubbles by Monster. Oh, isn't it a cool Hidden Mickey? It's accidental. So the Hidden Mickeys actually were founded in 1982, or purposely done in 1982, and became a thing when the Imagineers were creating Epcot. Now, when they were creating Epcot, the big wigs in the in the Disney company were saying, we don't want to have this Mickey Mouse. We don't have, I don't know why they talk like that, but they're like, we don't want to have the Mickey Mouse or the Donald Duck or the Goofy or the Minnie. We don't want to have any of those characters inside Epcot. Completely Disney character free. And the Imagineers were kind of upset because Mickey Mouse was technically their boss. And they said, well, no, we have to go through and we actually have to start hiding Mickey Mouse into different things. So they started to hide Mickey Mouse around the park before the park opened up as a way to still have Mickey Mouse and his friends inside the park, even though they were told there's no way to do this. Now, Mickey Mouses have started to go through and derive throughout the years, and they've gone into several different attractions, restaurants, video games, movies, everything you can think of. Even some of the the hotels around property will have Hidden Mickeys. Some that were found like on the ground, and then there's also ones like that are little physical toys of Mickey Mouse. Actually, over at the Beach Club, if you're walking down the hallway going towards Beaches of Cream, you can actually find a little Mickey on a sandcastle in a little display case. And if you continue going down there, you'll eventually get to the No Way Jose that we are all at the Beach Club for. Now, a No Way Jose is the most delicious snack that we can all think of throughout the entire history of mankind. I love them. You love them. We all love a good No Way Jose. But let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk a little bit about the surroundings around the Beach Club, more specifically Beaches and Cream. Now, when you're in Beaches and Cream now, it's kind of funny to think about the fact that this is Beaches and Cream 2.0. Now, prior to this, Beaches and Cream 2.0 is a bigger expansion on what it originally was. In fact, the old restaurant, if you remember back in like 2012, they expanded the restaurant. They actually took out part of the video arcade. They would go through and they would have it so they would expand the restaurant to make it a little bit bigger, to have it so it's more enjoyable for people to go through, so they wouldn't have to go fight over other people to try to get a dining reservation. It's not the only time that Imagineers have used the 2.0 while talking about things. We also have it things for like Star Tours The Adventures Continue, or things like Test Track, which is actually on refurbishment right now. In fact, the original Test Track, we were actually just talking about this the other day with one of my friends. The original Test Track had it so instead of going through and designing the futuristic car like the Test Track 2.0 was, you would actually be a test track dummy yourself. And when you first walked in, you would go through and you would have it so there's all these different test dummies, from like old cars. Remember the old, by the way, complete side note, remember the old Test Dummies television series? Because the commercials were so popular, they actually made a television series and then it failed miserably. Back in like the 90s, I remember it. I don't know if you guys do, but I do remember that. I think I saw one episode and that was it. But anyways, So they would go through and they would have it so you would be placed there, and then eventually you would get through, be prepped before you would actually be placed inside of your ride vehicle. Now, the person who would do the presenting was none other than Bill McKim from Test Track, of course. If you can yell Patricia, I'm not going to yell Patricia. Okay, let's continue here. It's glitchy. You guys are having glitchy? It's glitchy for you guys. It says, connection is unstable. If you're on Wi-Fi, try plugging in your router or moving closer to it. I am literally right next to it. I don't know if I've got a cord to do it. I don't know if we can do it for right now, but all right, let's keep on going. Bill McKim, and we're going to connect this to our next one here. So Bill McKim would go through, and Bill McKim would have it so he would go through and explain things and be like 3, 5, and 7. 7? Yeah, 7. Eventually, Bill McKim, along with the other person who's up in the tower with him, they would go through and be part of the attraction with you and talk to you. And as they would say things like, push it harder. Remember that when you were going around the last turn to the straightaway, and then you would bank on the... Anyways, I miss old Test Track. I really hope this new Test Track is going to be similar to old Test Track. Actually, I'll be going with one of my cast member friends next Friday for a preview of new Test Track 3.0, if you will. But that's completely besides the point. So let's continue talking about Test Track. So Test Track would eventually go through and have a remodel and become a Test Track 2.0. And in this case, people like yourself and myself would be able to go through and create their very own automobile. Now, while you're going through and creating your own automobile, and before you actually would get to the spot where you create your own automobile, there was like this futuristic car that was in a room. And I only saw it like twice because I only waited in the regular line like twice. It was only if I was with people who had like younger kids who could not go into the single rider line. By the way, single rider line's amazing. But when you were in that room and you saw that car, one of the cool things about that car is at one point it would have a Mickey Mouse display. And the entire car looked like a really cool souped up Mickey Mouse car. It was like the ones that you can actually buy at the gift shops. Let's talk a little bit about the ones that I could find at the gift shops. So if you go to the different gift shops around the Walt Disney World Resort, many of them at one point had it so there was like these different little race cars that they could go through. They had Mickey, Goofy, Donald. They also had more obscure characters like Simba and Figment and Woody. But in addition to all those cars, they would start to have it so that would kind of become the evolution for what would become a little thing called Vinylmations. I love my Vinylmations. We've got a lot of Vinylmations that are scattered around right here. That's Cloud Kicker from Tailspin right there. But Vinylmations would completely take over the entire world by storm. Back in like early 2010, 2011, 2012, around there, everywhere you went, you could find Vinylmations in the biggest craze of all time. In fact, if you were to go down to downtown Disney, now Disney Springs, over on the west side, now still the west side, if you went over there, there was an actual store that was called, oh wait, I'm just drugged, not D-Tech, oh my gosh, Trendy. No, Trendy is a different one. Oh my gosh, what is it called? I had it too in my head while I was like leading up to it. This is awkward. What was it called? Someone help me, please. I can see it too. I can see the sign. I just can't read the sign in my head. D Street. That's it. D Street. Thank you. Thank you, Ben H. I appreciate it. D Street. I still have the complete side note. I still have the D Street bag that you got your information in, or your Vinylmations in. So D Street would become one of the coolest little things. Also, some of the coolest hidden Mickeys found throughout the entire area too. But if you would walk into the shop, everything scattered around had different references to different things that were found around the Disney company. Some of these things included things like the massive old witch that could be found right above your head. Now, this old witch was originally found over at Disney Quest, which of course would close up a few years after D Street would close up. But over at Disney Quest, we have several different things that, I had an idea of how I was going to get to the next one, but now we're going to take a completely different route because I like this wet route better. So over at Disney Quest, there was a lot of really cool different things that they had. But one of the coolest ideas that they had, and I still am mad because when they closed down Disney Quest, like the last year and a half, 2 years, they didn't have this special feature going on anymore. But when you would first get there, you would board an elevator, and when you got to the boarded the elevator, you would be taken up to the third floor. And in this elevator, you would have it so the genie from Aladdin would be there, and he would be explaining to you all about Disney Quest. And it would feel like the entire elevator was launching up until you eventually got to the port, which was on the third floor. Now, this would be the genie, obviously, from Aladdin. And the genie from Aladdin has made several appearances in several different projects, but one of them I think that we need to talk about is a little short called Once Upon a Studio. Oh my gosh, I just nailed my knee on the desk while adjusting. In Once Upon a Studio, we do have the genie there, and he is performing actual lines from the film that were cut in the voice of Robin Williams, and he is performing with Josh Gad, who plays the character of Olaf. Now, this was actually a really cool special moment because Olaf, along with Josh Gad always said that Robin Williams was the inspiration for him to get into acting and to become a voice actor at some point. And so to have it so him and the genie could actually share a scene together is one of those really, really cool things that I just absolutely love. Keep on throwing those questions down there. I'm looking at, or the things. I see some questions popping up too. We'll go through and answer your questions as we go through here. But what's our next? Oh, there's our next one. Okay. So, that's a tough one, Eric. That's not the one we're going to, but now I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so anyways, let's continue. So Olaf can be found in several different parts around the Disney parks around the world. It can also be found in several different short cartoons. It can also be found in his own little special things. But let's talk a little about some of his appearances around the world, because obviously we have things like Frozen Ever After, found over at Epcot, which would be the first time that he would actually appear in a attraction anywhere around the world. We also had things like he's found over at the Frozen show in Hollywood Studios. He's also found over at Tokyo Disney Sea in the new Frozen area. In addition to all of that, he actually has his own spot on Castaway Cay. Now, Castaway Cay, obviously, the Disney private island that you can go through and then you can visit if you are going through and, taking a Disney cruise. Now, as we remember, Olaf just had a dream of being in summer. And because that he always wanted to be in summer, it just made sense that he would go through. I just keep on looking at the one that's after the one I'm trying to get to. The one I'm trying to get to is going to be so easy to get to. But it's the one after that I'm like, I'm trying to think of exactly. I know the name, and I'm almost positive I know exactly who it. Anyways, okay. So, continuing on. So it just makes sense that he's going to be found over on Castaway Cay. Now, Castaway Cay is broken up into several different spots throughout the area. We've got things like the Pelican Plunge over there, which I highly recommend. The tower over there, which I highly recommend. The snorkeling over there, which I highly recommend. Cookies 2, which I highly recommend. Cookies 1, which I highly recommend. And then Serenity Bay. So good. I'm one of those people who I enjoy Serenity Bay. I've gone up to Serenity Bay a few times. Actually, side note, one time when we were out on Serenity Bay, it was in 2014, January 2014 to be specific, and me and 3 of my friends went out there and we actually built our own little sand man, kind of like Olaf, out of sand out there, because Frozen had just come out in theaters and we were like, it'd be really cool if we made an Olaf out here on Serenity Bay. So I could have gone that way as well. But that is not going to be the one that we're going to be talking about. We're going to said going out to the next one. I'm 90% positive that there's only one, if not 2 things this person's done, Eric. I'm taking the risk, and we're going for the one that I'm pretty sure he's done. So, going off of Serenity Bay. Now, Serenity Bay has so many different things that you can do out there and just kind of enjoy your time with. Now, after you go through and you wrap up your time out at Serenity Bay and at Castaway Cay, guests are invited to go back to the always wonderful Disney Cruise Line ship. Whether you're on the Fantasy, the Wonder, the Dream, the Wish, the Magic, what have you, you're going to go out on that ship and you're going to have a grand old time. Now, there's a few different things that are found on the ships that are completely unique to each individual ship. And there's also a few different things on each ship that also are kind of the same. Now, one of the things that kind of ties all the ships together is the Walt Disney Theater. Now, if you ever go to the Walt Disney Theater, typically, not always, but typically, you can find a picture of Walt Disney sitting there kind of like this. Yeah, he's more I can't do his face in that, but he's more serious looking, and it's more of a prolific picture from the side. So if you are looking at this picture, there's a few different things that I would like to point out in this sequence. Number one, if you look closely at his hand, you can tell that they actually airbrushed out a cigarette, because Walt Disney was known for pretty much always having a cigarette in his hand. Number two, if you look behind him, you can also find a little, one of those little mirror things that you like spin it and it goes. That's the Jack in the Box. But the sound, actually, just the mirror. The mirror, you spin the mirror and it makes it so it looks like the animation's going on. So the animation that is found here is actually from the movie Fantasia, which came out in 1940. Now, in 1940, we would actually have it so multiple animators that were working for Walt, people like the Nine Old Men, would be around to help create movie magic that we never would have dreamed of just a few years prior. In fact, just a few years prior, we would actually have our first ever animated film, our full-length feature animated film, which would be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which would help launch Disney into a brand new frontier that they never would have dreamed about anytime in the future or in the past or any time between. Most people would say that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was going to be a huge bust. They did not think it was going to be successful at all. A lot of people said that if you watch the cartoon for that long, you would go insane or you would just die. That's not made up at all. That's actually what people were saying about what Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was going to be prior to it actually being released in theaters. Of course, it would go through and it would become one of the most popular films of all time. Actually, it was the highest grossing film of all time up until that point in history in 1937. And the following year, maybe it was 2 years later, it would be overtaken by Gone with the Wind. But you know what? That's okay, because we had the title for a very short period of time. I just dropped my pen. So a lot of people we would like to contribute to the creation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Obviously, people like Walt Disney. Also, Hazel Sewell, American animator. Hazel Sewell, it was this, and I want to say Plain Crazy are the two things that he's noted for, right? I saw the name, and I'm like, I could be wrong. I could be right. I have no idea. We are playing Connect the Dots, yes. So let's talk a little bit about Plain Crazy. Now, Plain Crazy is one of those films that if you go through the history of Disney, the best nap I ever had on Serenity Bay. I've never seen anyone sleep so soundly as Eric did when we were on Serenity Bay, his first time ever in Serenity Bay. So Plain Crazy, let's talk a little bit about Plain Crazy here. So when you are looking at a short cartoon like Plain Crazy, a lot of people go through and they'll talk about how Plain Crazy and Galloping Gaucho were created. They actually were released before Steamboat Willie, and that's going to be the actual creation of Mickey Mouse. These are partially true statements, but they're not completely true statements. So let's talk a little bit about why they're partially true and why they're partially false, and then we're going to kind of go from there. So first off, yes, Galloping Gaucho and Plain Crazy were animated prior to Steamboat Willie. However, before they were released in theaters, this amazing movie came out in 1928 called The Jazz Singer. And with The Jazz Singer, it was the very first time ever in the history of the cinema that people would actually be able to go to a film and listen to the actors, because before that, all films were completely silent. So Walt said, you know what we got to do? We got to create a sound cartoon. So he decided that they're going to create a brand new Mickey Mouse cartoon. Keep in mind, Mickey Mouse has not been released yet. However, the creation of Mickey Mouse is around. Hopefully this makes sense. But they decided that they were going to release a brand new cartoon called Steamboat Willie and synchronized sound with the thing, which is why we have it so Mickey Mouse's birthday is on November 18th, 1928, because that was the year and the day that Steamboat Willie first debuted. And then Plain Crazy and Galloping Gaucho, even though they were created before, were not released until after, because they added some sound effects to those films as well, but they didn't have a primary sound like Steamboat Willie would have had. So because of that, those two were technically released later, but created before. But because they were released later on, they don't get the credit of being the first ever Mickey Mouse cartoon. But instead, we give it to Steamboat Willie. So going from Steamboat Willie, we had it so a few animators would continue going on through the history of Disney. One of them would be Ub Iwerks. Now, Ub Iwerks, most famously known for having the same birthday as me. But besides that, it's a true statement. When people ask me if there's any celebrities that have the same birthday as me, I always say Ub Iwerks, and they always look at me so confused. They're like, who? Ub Iwerks would be Walt Disney's partner in creation of so many different things for so many different years. They would have a falling out at one point, and they wouldn't work together for about 15, 20 years, and then they would get back together and do it all over again. Eventually, Ub's son, Don, would come through, and he would become a Disney legend as well, working on things with his father, things like the Circle Vision camera, things that you can find still in some of the Disney parks today, most notably over in Epcot. We can find it at the Canada Pavilion and at the China Pavilion. Ub and Don worked on that, and then eventually Don's daughter, Leslie Iwerks, would go on to create one of the most amazing, if not the most amazing thing anyone has ever seen before, and that is the Imagineering story. In the Imagineering story, it is broken up into 6 different episodes, and in those 6 different episodes, we learn a little bit about the history of how Disneyland and Magic Kingdom and Epcot and Shanghai and all the other parks were created. And it's amazing. It's a great way to kind of learn about how everything was done and the history behind all of it. But it doesn't go into all the details about everything, and that's a shame. I'm hoping that we get another season sometime in the near future. If not, there is a massive book, and when I say massive book, I mean it's like literally like that thick, called The Imagineering Story, and I highly recommend it. It took me forever to read, but at the same time, it was such a good read. I highly recommend it. It's right there on my bookshelf. It's pretty big. So anyways, where was I going with this? I know where I was going. I was going someplace with this. So with this, we would focus mainly on the idea of the Imagineers, but there's a few other things that are found in the parks that are not technically the Imagineers that created, but another group of creative people that would make stuff instead, and that would be Disney Live Entertainment. Now, Disney Live Entertainment would go through and create, and they still create, a lot of different things in the parks, and it's mainly entertainment experiences. So this can be everything from the Hat Lady found over at the Rose and Crown, who plays music on the piano. It can be people like Yeehaw Bob, found over at Port Orleans Riverside. It can be bigger things like the parades, or it can be things that are opening up on opening day of different parks. So like over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, originally we had things like Vessel Lion King, which is still there. It was just moved to a different location. And we also had another show called The Jungle Book, which was based off the Jungle Book and starred, of course, lovable characters like Baloo. Now, Baloo inside of this show was not the greatest. It was not the greatest show. In fact, it lasted a very short time until very quickly, it was going to be replaced by Tarzan Rocks, which was my personal favorite thing that they ever had there. And then eventually that would be replaced by what we all know as Finding Nemo the musical. And now it's Finding Nemo the Great Beyond, in the big, I don't know, the old Finding Nemo the musical was better. My favorite of all of them was Tarzan Rocks. So let's talk a little bit about Tarzan Rocks. Now, Tarzan Rocks, of course, would feature so many different classic songs from the movie Tarzan, which was released back in 1999. And with these different creations, let's talk a little bit about Tarzan's movements through the trees. Because Glenn Keane, a legendary animator, he has created so many different classic characters like Tarzan and like The Little Mermaid. He actually was inspired by the movements of his son, who was a skateboarding expert. Well, he enjoyed skateboarding, and he decided to have it so the movements of his son's skateboarding would be the movements that would take him through the trees in the 1999 film. I think I threw like an extra 9 in there, but in the 1999 film Tarzan. So if you ever watch that movie and you want to be inspired, that's why they do it. Eventually, Tarzan would actually get his own tree over in Disneyland's Adventureland, known as Tarzan's Treehouse, and Tarzan's Treehouse would eventually, or it would be the replacement for the Swiss Family Treehouse, which can still be found over the Magic Kingdom to this day. Now, when the Swiss Family Treehouse first opened up back in the 1960s, Walt Disney wanted to have it so someone special would be the first person to walk through the tree. I need to drink of water real quick. So he decided that the best person to have as the first guest to go through the tree would be two people. It would be John Mills, who played the father in the film, and his daughter, Haley Mills, who would play characters like Pollyanna in the movie Pollyanna, and Sharon and Susan in The Parent Trap, and several other films that Disney did throughout the years, leading up to Good Morning, Miss Bliss. Saved by the Bell. This is a complete side story here. We're going to stay with the treehouse, but Saved by the Bell, when the teacher pops a test and you know you're gonna mess, and the bus drives by, it's all right, because I'm saved by the bell. Saved by the Bell is actually a spinoff of a show that originally had one season called Good Morning, Miss Bliss. And it still had Zach Morris, it had Lisa Turtle, it had Screech. Those were the only three characters that would make it into Saved by the Bell. But the teacher in that was Miss Bliss, hence Good Morning, Miss Bliss. And she was played by Haley Mills. So that's just a complete side note that I just like to point out to people every now and then. But let's continue talking about Haley Mills when she went up that treehouse. So when she went up that treehouse, she said, "This is lovely." No, that's not the reason that we're going to talk about it. So when they would eventually open up Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, they of course would put another treehouse over there. And at the opening of Adventureland in the Magic Kingdom, we didn't have as many attractions as we have now. In fact, we had 3, technically 4, but we had the Swiss Family Treehouse, love it. The Jungle Cruise, love it. Tropical Serenade, which I know some of you are like, what? And that would be, of course, now the Enchanted Tiki Room. They just had a different name over here. And then we also had Shrunken Ned's Junior boat safari thing. It was like a little thing. And I know you're thinking, but what about, I know what you're thinking, what about Pirates of the Caribbean? Well, Pirates of the Caribbean didn't open up until 1973 because there's this entire idea of a place called Thunder Mesa that was going to be found in Frontierland. And they were going to have all the funding for Thunder Mesa going towards Thunder Mesa until a lot of people started complaining. And they said, no, what we want to do is we want to have Pirates of the Caribbean. And so they decided to take all the money from Thunder Mesa and throw it over at Pirates of the Caribbean. However, some parts of Thunder Mesa still would exist and would be built later on as the years went by, with one of them being Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And when you go through Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, there are so many different details there. There's things like bank robbers. Actually, 2 of the bank robbers are none other than the 2 characters from the Apple Dumpling Gang, played by Tim Conway and Don Knotts, right? Yeah, Tim Conway and Don Knotts. I love those 2 guys. So let's continue. She's the headed. Oh, and Lillian's sister. That's right. I screwed up. That was a good one, Eric. Eric has won the thing. We don't have any other things. No one else has put any other things out here. So we're at Apple Dumpling Gang. Until someone else puts the thing up, we'll answer some questions here because we do have some questions popping up here. What's the best thing to do on a non-park day? Staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge. I'm thinking of going to Springs, but what else? I would say mini golf. If you've not been watching my stories, I do the mini golf quite often. I also like doing the Skyliner. If you can take a bus from Animal Kingdom Lodge over to Hollywood Studios, then you can take the Skyliner all around. You can explore the resorts over there, or you can take it over to Magic Kingdom and then take the monorail around. I would suggest going up to Wilderness Lodge as well. There's a lot of different things to do. On Disney property. I've been living here for 15 years and I've never gotten bored. I really, truly have taken advantage of it all. Does anyone have anything else? We're still on Apple Dumpling Gang. For those of you guys who just joined us, we are playing the game of Connect the Dots. We are trying to connect things from one thing to another thing. And oh, wait, there we go. We got some other ones coming in. If we get one more subscriber, right now we are currently at 8,712 subscribers. If we get one more, if we get up to 8,713 or 14 or 15, we'll go through and answer more of those questions. Okay, but we do have a few more people who started to throw the stuff in, so let's continue with our game of Connect the Dots. So the Apple Dumpling Gang was one of the very first times ever in the history of Disney that we actually got a sequel based off of a live action film. Of course, that sequel was the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again. What? In my personal opinion, the sequel is a whole lot better than the original. Just saying. So during the sequel, we did bring back Don Knotts and Tim Conway. Don Knotts would actually star in a few other Disney films as well. One of my personal favorites would be, of course, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Now, in Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, Herbie goes to Monte Carlo. Herbie, along with Dean Jones' character, they would go through and eventually make their way to Monte Carlo, and they would do this race. Herbie would fall in love. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was romantic. They would actually go out to France and film on location, and that's not all. It wouldn't be the only time that we would actually have a Disney movie that took place in the wonderful setting of France. Of course, we have other things like Beauty and the Beast. We've got one of our dinosaurs is missing. There's one scene that takes place there. I know some of you guys are thinking that's not a movie, but actually, yes, it is. One of our dinosaurs is missing. Here, let's pull up the old Disney encyclopedia. One of our dinosaurs is missing. No one even said in the chat room of that's not a real movie. I just love how random of a movie one of our dinosaurs is missing. Where is it at? It's not even in here. It's got to be in here. One of our dinosaurs is missing. One of our dinosaurs is missing. I don't think they have it in here. Anyways, it was like is it? Oh, here it is. One of our dinosaurs is missing. Lord Southermere, a brilliant intelligence agent, steals a piece of top secret microfilm that the Lotus X from a Chinese warlord and hides it in the skeleton of a dinosaur in the London Museum. Blah 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 blah. It would be released in 1975. I just went down a long rabbit hole there for my own pleasure. So anyways, in addition to that, we would also have films like Beauty and the Beast. Now, in Beauty and the Beast, of course, we got so many classic characters like Belle, Beast, Cogsworth, Lumiere, Mrs. Potts, Chip, and LeFou and Gaston. Now, voice acting would become one of those things that would just be a staple of Disney films for years and years and years. And actually, at this point, most people would not be really told who the voice actors would be. In fact, this would be something that wouldn't be happening until the following year in 1992 when they would release Aladdin. And everyone said, guess what? Robin Williams is the voice of the genie. And they said, what? And it was like this mind-blowing thing, and it actually caused some lawsuits, and it was a lot of craziness. But that's not exactly what we're going to be talking about right now. But what we want to talk about is the fact that Robin Williams did go through and he voiced the genie. We actually talked about Robin Williams earlier. This sounds like a let's take a different detour because that's not where we want to go. Well, no, okay. So Robin Williams, prior to voicing the genie, he would also be in a film called Return to Neverland. This would actually be a promotional film, not a promotional film. It was going to be part of an attraction found over at Disney's Hollywood Studios or Disney MGM Studios at the time, which would be found over at the Magic of Disney Animation. It starred it starred Robin Williams and Walter Cronkite, and the two of them would go through and explain exactly how animated characters would be created. This was not the only time that Walter Cronkite would be found at the Disney attraction. He also was the narrator at one point for Spaceship Earth. And actually, this is not the only time that we have a celebrity that is found at Epcot. If you go through the history of Epcot, we got so many different celebrities that have done so many different things found throughout the things. Obviously, the things like Ellen's Energy Adventure has Ellen DeGeneres. We also had Alex Trebek. We also had Kramer from Seinfeld. He was up there on the hill. That's what he did. And that was his whole part. It was like not even 5 seconds of a cameo. Over at the Wonders of Life Pavilion, we had multiple characters like George Wendt, George Wendt from Cheers. He was found there. Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live. The dad from Beethoven, and he was in so many different things. He was in The Great Muppet Caper. I can't think of his name right now. George something. Anyways, in addition to all of those characters that can be found over these voice actors, we also have like Patrick Warburton. He's found over at Soren, Sword and Tower. In fact, not only has he done that, but he's also been the voice of the one and only Kronk. So let's talk a little bit about Kronk, because Kronk was so popular that he did not just have his merchandise everywhere for The Emperor's New Groove, but he also inspired a sequel called Kronk's New Groove. In Kronk's New Groove, Kronk also gets a new groove. It wasn't the greatest sequel. I'm pretty sure it's available on Disney Plus, but he also appeared in the classroom for a little show called The Emperor's New School. All of them being voiced by Patrick Warburton. He would also be the voice of some of the characters in Buzz Lightyear Star Command. Buzz Lightyear Star Command, of course, would be the inspiration for the attraction Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin over at Magic Kingdom. It wasn't just about Toy Story. It was actually inspired by a television series that was a spinoff of Toy Story as well. Now, next door to this location was a Robin Williams. I just want to throw Robin Williams in there one more time. Called we had Nine Eye over there, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. I just thought it'd be fine to throw that way out there. Let me get a more drink here, and then we're gonna wrap up this bad boy. So keep on throwing those things in there. We have only one in there right now. Maybe it's two. I can't really scroll down that far. We have two, but keep on throwing things in there. Okay. Let's talk. So, while you're in the queue for Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, you can actually find Buzz Lightyear himself right there, and he's like, this is how he moves. For the notorious Emperor Zurg. Now, one of the cool things that I like to point out to people while you're actually sitting there in line is if you look to the left of him, all of the different projections that are being done is actually found on one of those little viewfinders. What? So to pay tribute to the viewfinder that is found here, they decided to put some viewfinder things over in Toy Story Mania's line as well. There are two different things there. One is for Disneyland. The other one is found for Peter Pan. In addition to that, if you're going through the queue, you can also find a giant speaker, like a baby monitor. This baby monitor has a sister, and that sister can be found at the very end of, you guess it, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. But let's focus a little bit about Toy Story Mania. Now, Toy Story Mania was one of those attractions that when it was being created, they wanted to have it so it was going to be created at the same time as another attraction over in California Adventure called Toy Story Midway Mania. So they decided to build both of these simultaneously, with one of them opening up just slightly before the other one. But overall, we had an amazing attraction that showed that you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. Bum, ba-dum. Now, next to Toy Story Midway Mania over in California Adventure, we now have Pixar Pier. Pixar Pier, of course, has it so you are going through and focusing on so many really cool different Pixar films. Next to it, we can find things like a game for Bullseye. We can also find a game for Monsters, Inc. And then finally, we can also find a game that's focused on WALL-E. So the WALL-E game is just like a simple little game, where, not really simple. I played it once and I lost. But it is one of those games that it's a fun game to play. So while you're over there on Pixar Pier, I saw the next one, which is Paradise Falls. While you're over there on Pixar Pier, you can go through, you can enjoy those games. You can also go and take a little ride on the Fun Wheel. Now, the Fun Wheel was originally Mickey's Fun Wheel and had it so it was terrifying, and they decided to retheme it to Pixar, where it was also completely terrifying. But I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's also the only attraction ever that I've been puked on when I was waiting for it to load. Someone threw up out of the cart, and it hit me and the person next to me. And it was disgusting. But they let us go clean off, and they also let us come back and gave us some lightning lanes for everything else, or fast passes it was back in the day. Let's talk a little bit about fast passes. So fast passes originally came out in the late 1990s. Before that, people would just wait in line. After that, people would not always wait in line. They would actually want to have it so they could go through and do anything and everything. So, we talked about Wally. Oh, I was leading to a different Wally thing. Okay, wait. How are we gonna get to the next one? Computing. I think we know how to get there, but I'm not positive. But let's try to do it anyways. Oh, I know how we're gonna do there. Okay. So also in the 1990s, we were going through and we were trying to have it so we were creating all these different amazing things. Oh my gosh, this is such a good one. Hold on to your hats, people, because your minds are about to be blown. So we're going through and creating all these different things in the 1990s for Disney parks around the world. Things like, obviously, fast passes, but we also have amazing parks that are being planned. Obviously, some of them for the future in the early 2000s, things like California Adventure, Disneyland Paris would get a second park, Tokyo Disney would get a second park, every single thing would get a second park. In the late 1990s, we got things like Disney's Animal Kingdom, which is one of my favorite parks of all time. But even before that, still in the 1990s, they had other projects that they were working on. Now, some of these projects would be things like Disney's America. Ooh. Now, Disney's America was an idea that just never happened. So what it was going to be was in Virginia, they actually had purchased a lot of land, and they're going to build a theme park that was historical. So instead of being focused all around the idea of thrill rides and things like that, it would focus on slavery. It would focus on the Civil War. It would focus on really hard-hitting subjects, but with a Disney educational twist to have it so people would go in, they would learn, and they would take lessons away. Now, while they were actually working on this project, they had it so it was named Project Venezuela. Ooh, which would mean that people probably would think that it would be in Venezuela. And it wasn't. It was in Virginia. But you know what? It was in Venezuela, the actual falls that inspired Paradise Falls from the movie Up. I'm so happy with that connection there. That was a good connection. We don't have anything to connect to. So Paradise Falls, obviously from the movie Up, is the location that Carl Fredricksen and his beloved Ellie want to get to. And Ellie unfortunately passes away in the first 8 minutes of the film. And so Carl decides that he's going to go out to the Paradise Falls all by himself by taking his house there instead. And the idea of exploration with Paradise Falls is one of those things that takes you back to a primitive time, a place of exploration, a place of amazingness, a place that just makes you feel like a child again, kind of like a little thing called Tom Sawyer Island. Bam, we came full circle. Okay, let's go through. We have some questions that were not about this, so let's go through and answer some of your questions while we still have a little bit of time here. We still have 8 minutes left, so throw your questions through about anything and everything Disney over the last few moments here. Sorry, Drain Late. How many cruises have you been on? I have been on 10 Disney cruises, I want to say. I've been on 2 non-Disney cruises. And then I've been on... Okay, let's figure this out real quick here. I've been on the Fantasy. I've been on the Magic. I've been on the Magic. I've been on the Dream. I've been on the Wonder. I've been on the Fantasy. I've been on the Magic. I've been on the Wish. I've been on the Magic. How many times? Okay, I think it's 10. I want to say it's 10, but I'm drawing a blank. I've only done the Wonder once. I've done all the other ones at least twice. No. I've done the ones that start with W once. So I've done the Wonder and the Wish once. That's 2. I've done the Magic 3 times. I've done the Dream twice, and I've done Fantasy 3 times. So I've done 10. 10. Pretty sure. She was the head of ink and paint department, and Lillian says, okay, so what was her name again? Didn't she work on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, though? I think I was right there. Oh, wait. Hazel Sewell. Let's look her up here. Okay. SEW. She's not in my book. She's not in the book. So I think you just made someone up. No. I've definitely heard the name before. And I'm 90% positive that Snow White and Seven Dwarfs and was one of the things, but I could be wrong. Okay, let's go through. Let's answer a few more questions here before we wrap up. That was the last question we had. Have you ever run the Castaway Key 5K? Yeah, I've ran it every time I've been on the island, with the exception of the first time that I was on the island. So I've ran it 8 times now. Because there's been one, my first cruise, they didn't have it. And then my 10th cruise, we went to Lookout Point instead. So I want to say it's 8. My birthday share with Jim Henson. Oh, man. What did you do on your first day? It depends on what time you get there. If you're staying at a Disney hotel, you do get water parks for free on your first day, on your check-in day. I do recommend that quite often. Like I said, today I went over, I did Blizzard Beach. I went on Summit Plummet 3 times. I did the Storm Racers twice. Runoff Rapids once. Toboggan Racers once. I did the Lazy River once. I did the Wave Pool once. I don't know. Was Robin Williams part of Journey into Imagination one time, or as the absent mind? Okay, so no, he wasn't. But you can see his picture in the lobby, or in the lobby for Journey into Imagination. So this would probably be our last question, unless we get one more subscriber. We are still sitting at our 8,712. So if you want us to answer another question like this, we're going to go into quite a bit of detail about this. So we can go into one more question with detail if we get another subscriber here. But so Journey into Imagination has been around since pretty much when Epcot first opened up. It didn't open up with the park, but it opened up shortly after. In 1996, I'm pretty sure 1996, I could be off a year. In 1996, you would go through and they would have it so they would open up a second Disney or a second attraction with the Imagination Pavilion. Prior to that, it was going to be Captain EO. Prior to that, it was Magic Journeys. But what we would do is they would actually have it so in 1996, they opened up a new attraction, which was called Honey, We Shrunk the Audience, right? Shrunk the Audience. And in Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, you, the audience, would be shrunk down during an Inventor of the Year award. Now, right around the same time, they had it so there was a few other important people who would be in the universe of Disney inventors, with one of them being the absent-minded professor from Flubber, played by Robin Williams. Now, the Inventor of the Year award, which is the award that we're going to for the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience section, when we went over to that show, they would actually have it so there was this presentation going on where the, Professor Wayne Selinsky, aka Rick Moranis, he was receiving the Inventor of the Year award from a man named Dr. Nigel Channing. Dr. Nigel Channing being played by Eric Idle. Now, Eric Idle would not have been in Journey into Imagination with Figment yet. This would actually be coming later. So what they would do is they were trying to have it so the two different things were being connected together. So we would have one that was going to be the the Journey into Imagination Pavilion, and the other one being the Inventor of the Year award. Now, when they decided to go through and create a new version of Figment, they decided to bring in Eric Idle, mainly just him, no Figment. Like there was like one little cameo of Figment, and people, myself included, hated it. It only existed for like 2 months, and I just happened to be down on here on vacation when it opened up, and it was awful. It was like probably one of the worst attractions. It might be worse than Stitch's Great Escape. That's how bad it was. I remember loving the original. I remember going to this second version of it and thinking this is the worst attraction ever. And then they came in with a third one, and they brought Figment back. It became more lovable than the second version. And with that, they decided to kind of lean into the idea of this Inventor of the Year award. And with that, they decided to have it so in the lobby, we had Rick Moranis playing Dr. Wayne Szalinski, along with Robin Williams' character from Flubber in there, along with Eric Idle. And then when you're going through the doors, we've got 4 different doors there. One of them is the Flubber storage. One of them is for Philip Brainerd, who is the Robin Williams character. Another one is for Wayne Szalinski. And then another one is for Dr. Nigel Channing. And then the final door is actually for Dean. Oh, I just had it in my head. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to save this one for last because it's Dean Higgins. And Dean Higgins would be the character who was the dean of the college, Medford College, in the films Now You See Him, Now You Don't, The Strongest Man in the World, and The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. And that's while you're in Journey to Imagination with Figment, you pass the computer lab, and there's a sign that says no tennis shoes allowed, and there's a pair of tennis shoes on the front floor. And then if you look, there's like 5 names on there, and these are different characters that were found in those films, along with other films like The Monkey's Uncle and Merlin Jones, and long answer. Okay, let's go through. We are still at 8,712. I just subscribed. It says, wait a minute. Well, we go to Disney Springs often as Florida residents. I just subscribed. I do enjoy going to Disney Springs. I don't go to Disney Springs as often as I would like to, because I really just enjoy spending as much time in the park as possible. And I go to the park literally every single day. So that, guys, is going to be wrapping up our broadcast today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us once again. As always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our Patreon pals. If you're one of our Patreon pals out in the chat room right now, give us an oh yeah. All right, thank you, everyone out there, for joining us once again this week. Please keep on spreading the word about the Wednesday show and From Screen to Theme. Invite all your friends to join over on Facebook or right here on YouTube as we get closer and closer to that 9,000/10,000 number. We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit 9,000 in August. August of the latest. That's my goal right now. August of the latest. We're gonna be at 9,000, but hopefully even sooner than that, and 10,000 definitely before the end of the year. So keep on sending your friends over. Thank you, everyone out there. Like the video as well. That helps too. As always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good, my cheese just can't stand this kind of pressure.